Andrei Svechnikov. He's one of the game's great young players, right? He can be a restricted free agent after next season, a 20-year-old forward coming off a terrific season. Now, the salary cap is going to remain flat through $81.5 million to next season. So here's the question. Number 2 pick, 2018 draft. He had 61 points in 68 games. He had 4 goals in 6 postseason games. That was second only to Sebastian Aho. What about a long-term extension before he becomes an RFA? Well, glad you asked. Here's what Don Waddell had to say, Hurricanes president GM. Our goal is to keep Andrei here for a very long time. In saying that, with the economics the way they are right now around the league, it might make sense to do a bridge deal. You do a short-term deal, and the idea would be you do a couple-year deal and then set yourself up for an 8-year deal, which then locks the player up for 10 years. I love the fact that Don's breaking it down, Billy. I know this. There's not going to be as much money to throw around there. 1-year deal, but I think the player wants that 8-year deal up front, doesn't he?
Oh, yes and no. If he can't get to the number that he wants, then no, he'll take the shorter-term deal. Think the Boston Bruins and Charlie McAvoy. They did a 3-year deal, 2-year deal with Brendan Carlo. Not the same kind of money that a guy like Svechnikov might make, but McAvoy wanted a bigger term, but yet a bigger dollar. The Bruins said, no, we'll pull back. But on his 3rd year of his deal, all of a sudden he gets to that number where he's comfortable. And now Svechnikov, I could see a 2-year deal. Listen, the flat cap is going to be around at least 2 seasons. That's what it's going to be. Right. So if I'm the kid, I say, look, I'm going to make as much as I can, but I make sure that 2nd year of my deal, I'm ticking up higher, so I'm guaranteed 10% above that, keeping my rights there. The kid's going to be at 7+ invariably soon.
To your point, so these are the numbers. When you look at some comps here, right? Line A, 2 years at 134 points. You look at Kyle Connor, Kachuk, and Mikko Rantanen-Reader. He was at 9.25 after 6 years at 122. Yeah. Now, Svechnikov doesn't have that radar, but to Billy's point, 2 years, $20 million, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, I just find it very interesting that your general manager, Don Waddell, is the guy coming out saying, well, I suggest this is the way I think.
This is what I'd like. He's took his hand.
What the heck's going on here? It's like, take a shorter-term deal, and then we'll give you the longer-term deal. It's like, I'm thinking the player would prefer the long-term deal than the short-term deal. Yeah. Now, it might work out well for both, but I don't think that Svechnikov is going to come in and say, okay, great, give me 4 for 2 years, and that's okay.
Right.
He's got to be looking at Sebastian Aho as just up over $8 million. Yep. So if you want to compare yourselves, and every team has got their own cap, their own internal cap, let's say. So here's Carolina's internal cap. Best player on your team, Sebastian Aho, by far, 8.45. Your best goal scorer on your team. Is it going to be Andrei Svechnikov? Is he going to be that guy who pushes the envelope in a year or two? Now, Sebastian Aho is making that money for some years. Is that close to what Svechnikov wants? He's not going to get more. He's not going to get more now. Is he going to get more in 2 or 3 years? So let's say you wait a couple years. You sign a deal for $5 or $6 million, let's say. A couple of years or 3-year deal, $5 or $6 million. Then all of a sudden you're scoring 40 or 50 goals. Now you come in and say, I want more than Aho. He's signed for a few more years, and the team's like, well, he's our best player. Without him passing you the puck, you're not scoring these goals.
Right.
Or the player might come in and say, all right, how about giving me Svechnikov might come in and say, how about giving me like 7 or 7.5 for the 6 or 7 years? So it's an interesting dynamic. He's going to make his money no matter what. But I think the internal cap, even though we've got comparables, I think around the league, I think that internal cap is more what Don Waddell's got to try to structure around.
Every team's got that. There's 1 or 2 guys on that list, too, Verky, that they want to move. There's no question about it, to open up some more cap space so they can continue working towards the longer-term deal. They want Svechnikov there. They need Svechnikov there. No question about it. I see him at that. If he does do a short-term deal, the 2nd year he's at 7. And then, therefore, he's guaranteed 7+ after that. And I could absolutely...
That's the qualifying offer guarantee.
Exactly. That's the point. That's where I see him at. And, I brought up McAvoy. Zach Werenski did the same thing with Columbus, et cetera. So I see that. Now, I'm sitting here standing in the NHL Network studios. What the heck do I know? What Svechnikov wants. But... he's going to get his money.
Yes.
Eventually, the question is going to be, can he stomach only, a couple of mil and then say 7 mil, maybe like a 4 and a 7 type. So you get 2 years, 11 million or something. Could he handle that? Yeah. And then cash in on a 7+ year deal at probably 7.5 to 8 a year. It all depends on what the economics are too. We can sit here and speculate as much as we want. Yeah. We have no idea what's going to happen with what's happening in the world right now.
I agree. I just like Don Waddell's candor. The fact
I think it's great. But in 5 years, players are starting to look at percentage of the cap. That's what they want. I want a percentage of the cap, and I want to be, if I'm scoring the most goals, if I'm the most important player, I want to have the highest percentage of the cap. That's going to be interesting. Where is that going to be in 5 years? So let's project it out for 5 years. You take that 2 or 3 year deal. you might be able to get a higher percentage of the cap. If you take a 7-year deal, then in 5 years, you're going to even be a lower percentage of the cap. So these are things that the agents are discussing. They've got all their mathematics and all their charts as much as the general managers have. But it's a very interesting time. And with the flat cap, with the whole situation of, do I sign long-term, short-term? He will get his money, but it's going to be interesting how this plays out.
Yeah, that's the situation when it comes to Svechnikov, good young player.